Welcome back to another episode of Book Eaters. We're here in the Book Eaters podcast studio. It's just myself, Michelle, and
April.
And tonight we're going to be talking about the serious problem with series. So let's get started with our serious problem with series. And to start this off, I thought it would be fun to have a series of drinks. And of course, we have to do shots for that. So our first shot is going to be rum, because rum is the spirit of the season.
I don't think we've ever done this on the podcast before. I'm curious to see where this goes. We are having a series of shots.
That's right. So first shot, which we're calling book one, because we're talking about series, and most series these days are trilogies at the minimum. So in this particular shot, we have rum, lime juice, Campari, and pineapple juice. And go ahead and shake that up for us. And pour it out. We're drinking this evening out of a series of shot glasses that someone got for me from Japan.
Someone?
I don't recall who it was.
A nameless benefactor.
So let's go ahead and take that shot. This should be tasty. Should go down pretty smooth, right?
What was the inspiration for these ingredients?
Just fun shit to put in rum. What was in my cabinet?
It seemed so planned out, though. You were like, put this into this one will go into this. So there was no rhyme or reason. It was just...
This is fun shit that's in my cabinet. Let's use it.
Cheers.
Cheers. So that was really good.
That was not bad.
It kind of had a grapefruity feel.
That's the Campari.
Ah.
But I feel like it could have been colder.
Well, I mean, we put the ice in it. You know, you do.
Oh,
is there any left over?
Let's do
it again. If there's more.
This was when I was not sure how to mix and make two shots.
So she made 4.
And there's maybe enough for a fifth.
All right, well, let's get started talking about series. So the first thing I wanted to chat about was, when we're talking about series, what are we actually talking about? So there's a couple of different things with books, right? So some books are standalones. Some books are series. Some books are like a standalone book that has a sequel. And then there are several books or book series that are in the same universe, right? So there's various differences. So a standalone book is a book that is written, and then that's it. That's all we get of that universe. That's all we get. That's it.
Oh, I mean, it's not just about universes, though. I mean, again, not everything is speculative.
Right. No, sure. But what I'm saying is, like, we don't get a sequel. Right. We don't get, like, more information about those characters. We don't get more information about, you know what I'm saying? It's one and done, right? So an example of this would be like Catcher in the Rye, right? We get Catcher in the Rye. We never get to hear about those characters again.
Well,
or do we?
Okay, so J.D. Salinger. Well, and you're right. But you could argue that J.D. Salinger had a little bit of a series bent, because the Glass family did play a big part in several stories. You know.
So he is part of that.
No, Holden Caulfield is not. But
are they in that series?
No, I mean, you're right.
Oh, okay. You're saying that he also wrote series.
Yeah. Okay. But I'd never considered it until you brought him up. But yeah, there was definitely a little bit of a series component to that, because there was Franny and... anyways, people will know what I'm talking about. It's going to be really interesting to see how this progresses with shots all night. But,
right? Okay. So, and then there's books that are standalone, that just are them one and done. Mm-hmm. Then there's books that have a sequel to them, right? So there's a book that's written, and a couple of years later, we get another book with the same characters or a similar character from the first book, a new perspective, right? So I'm trying to think of what is a book that's like that, or a series that's like that. What's a series that's like that? Can you think of one?
Well, I mean, now that we're talking about it, I told you I was off the cuff. I did no research, but I did immediately just think of 2.
Okay.
And I was not happy with either one of them.
Okay.
And I can't really remember the titles for either one of them. But there was a sequel to Gone with the Wind.
Okay.
That was written decades, obviously, after the original.
Was it by Margaret Mitchell?
No, it was another author.
Okay.
Then there was also Harper Lee, who just
recently 4
or 5 years ago came out with something about the Watchtower or something like that.
Yeah.
That was the sequel to Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay.
I didn't even finish it, to be honest. I'm going to try it again, maybe after I retire, and see if it somehow resonates more. But I just loved To Kill a Mockingbird so much. And I was perfectly fine with that being the only thing she ever wrote.
Right.
And then I love Harper Lee, so I don't want to disparage anything, but I was so excited for that book to come out. I bought it hardback,
Yeah,
obviously,
right.
and couldn't get through the first chapter.
So I think Ready Player One was kind of the same thing, right? So Ready Player One came out, and then they wrote a new he wrote a new book, Ready Player Two, that came out a couple of years ago. I
Yeah.
never read it because the reviews were so bad. I was like, why bother? But
Well, did Will Wheaton narrate it? Because you would have been
I mean,
orgasming
he
over
might
that.
have, but I didn't. I didn't hear good things about it, so I skipped it. So that would be a sequel. And then you also have books that are written in the same universe, but they're not necessarily tied, right? So you have characters. A lot of times this happens with sequels or with series, right? So like I'm thinking of like the Cosmere series, for example, right? So Brandon Sanderson wrote several books.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there were different series, and all of
And
those series were in the same
Greece
universe. The
and
Grishaverse is
I
another example,
I know,
right? So
but the one that we have in common,
yeah, Robin
the
Hobb. Robin Hobb
Realm of the
also,
Elderlings,
right? So it's the same.
Will also Wheel of Time,
Also,
also
well, Wheel of Time
Tolkien.
is a series. I wouldn't say that Wheel of Time is
Oh yeah,
in the
I
same
see what you're saying. I
universe.
got off
It's
track.
a whole series.
Would
So
you
like
say Tolkien is though?
The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings,
Right,
absolutely. I
right,
would say
right.
those are the same universe, but they're two different
Tales,
different stories, different characters. That's the main,
different timelines.
right?
Hmm.
So there's that, and then there's of course the series, which Wheel of Time is a good example of this, right? So you basically they start the tale with one book, and we have to read 9 books, 3 books, 4 books, 12 books to get to the end of the series, and the big bad isn't managed. Harry Potter is an example of this until after the series ends, right? So we start off. Sometimes the books end in a good place. Sometimes they leave you in a shit place. But either way, you have to read them all to get the full tale. That's a series, right? So those are the different variations of series. So when I say a serious problem is series, what I'm talking about is the last one, right? Where it starts with one story, and then in order for you to get the full story, you have to read all of the books
Hmm.
to get to them. There are some things that you might argue are series, like for example, Dresden, right? So Harry Dresden, those stories, they're one character and it's like the series of his life and he interacts with many different villains throughout. But I would argue that those are just stories within the same universe because each book ends completed for the most part, right? So at the end of the book, you're satisfied. You can walk away and never have to look back.
So I would think you could have and there's a lot of authors that do series, right? There's
Right?
one where like there's some writer that does murder stuff and like A stands for,
Sure,
you know,
sure.
Sue Grafton I think does
Right?
that. Then
Like the Da Vinci Code, that's a complete story.
right.
But then the Angels and Demons series is it got multiple stories in it.
And I think all of those, that I'm fine with that. I am fine with multiple stories taking place within, and this is restricted to fantasy, but
Right.
when they do the world building, because I mean, if you build a really great world, I don't
Right.
want to leave it, and you've
Hmm.
put so much effort into it. Why would you want to leave it?
And also, like
So I'm fine with that.
right.
I'm fine with that. I'm
Yeah.
also fine with standalone books.
Right.
I actually sort of admire that. I think that's kind of, and maybe I'm getting ahead of where you wanted to go with this, but I do think
It's
there
cool.
is an element of self indulgence with
Hmm.
series. You
Sure.
know, like I just love writing this so much, I'm not going to stop. And I think there's something to be said for distilling a story and having it between the front cover and the back cover, putting it on the
Yeah.
shelf and letting it just exist in that state.
From
And when
soup.
you close it,
Yeah.
you have that it's perfect. And I just think that is kind of becoming a lost art.
I mean, we still do see some books that are just one and done, and I like those, but I read less and less of them, and I think it's mostly because fantasy has forgotten that those exist. But like the Addie LaRue, that
Yeah.
was
Hmm.
a nice self-contained.
I think it is a very thin line between ambition
Mm-hmm.
and self-indulgence.
Well,
And that is true in life in general.
so let's talk about why we think that there are so many. Why are there more series? Like, why is it that series are happening more than standalone books?
Well, you know what is also interesting is it's like binging.
Mm-hmm.
There's this whole sort of psychology, I think, now where you just want one after the other, after the other, after the other.
It's
You
the
know?
difference between watching a TV series and a movie in some respects.
Mm-hmm.
Although a lot of times with movies we get sequels, but sometimes they're ended in a way where we're good if they don't have a sequel. But we're happy to see a new one, right? But with television shows, right, you have 9 episodes, you have to watch all 9 or all 7 or whatever to get the full story.
Yeah.
It's a different energy.
I mean, I love the idea of creating a fictional place, and it doesn't even have to be fantasy.
Right.
Can't remember. I wish I had researched it, but there was like this writer that I love, who did all of the stories took place in like the same town,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like Big Stone Gap or what can I remember? I wish I could remember her name.
I mean, immediately I think of like Stephen King, right? So a
Yeah,
lot of
Stephen.
his
Yeah,
stories, even though they're not necessarily related, take place in the same
I
town.
love that. And I love how they don't. It's not directly connected, but there's a little nod and a wink. You know, like if
Mm-hmm.
you're really into his books, you'll catch sort of the Easter eggs, the little references.
Right.
I love that. But I do think that if you are a person, a writer who has spent so much time vividly building a small town
Mm-hmm.
or this family saga with all, the Bridgertons, for example, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or, a fantasy world with magic building and all, magic systems and all of that.
Right.
That's a life's work. That is a lifetime achievement.
Right. Like Narnia or.
Right. So you would never need to leave that.
Right.
You would just keep reinforcing it and adding to it. And I can't blame them for that. But what I do have a problem with,
Oh.
Michelle, to me, the serious problem with series is people who start a series
Mm-hmm.
and won't fucking finish
I
it.
mean, they leave you in a place forever.
And I
That's,
get it, especially if it's the final book, you want to hone it.
yeah.
You want to make sure, because after this, you do say goodbye. And
Right.
so, and I think we all know what I'm
You're talking about
referencing.
Rufus, yeah.
Yes, Doors of Stone. You know,
Okay, yeah. Doors of
um,
Stone, absolutely. I'm with you. I 100%
but
am
in
ready for that book.
in Pat, as I like to call him, in Pat's defense, I get it. He knows what the story is, but he doesn't want to just bang it out. He wants, because he loves it as much as we do.
Right,
I
he
mean, this is
wants to
all
be
this is
perfect.
100% all in my head. But Pat loves these
No, I think
characters,
that's true. I mean, I've seen interviews with him, and that's basically what he's saying. He wants it to be perfect. He wants to make
right?
sure that it's right.
And so I will wait until the cows come home for that last book. He can take as much time with it.
I don't think so, Pat. Please don't take as
No,
much time
I
as you
want
want.
him to take as much time as he
No.
needs, as long as he stays in good health.
Hmm.
Because if he died before it happened, that would really be bad.
So he knows how it ends, and he's got like all the notes and stuff. He just hasn't completely. He's not ready to release the manuscript, I think.
It's the ending, and it's really hard to. It's Boys to
Plus,
Men.
plus
Boys
the
to Men.
hype
It's so
now.
hard
Oh my
to
God.
say
Plus the hype
goodbye.
is ridiculous now. Like we've been waiting so long and we've been thinking about it for so long. Like if it's not a great book,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be a disappointment and he doesn't want to be disappointing us.
Right.
Although there's a part of me that feels super bad for him because I follow him on Twitter
Oh.
and literally every time he tweets something, like 9 people are like, "When are you gonna finish that book? When are you gonna read that book?" And I'm like, you know what? That was cute once, but like it's every freaking and it's
Yeah.
not always
Now it's
this
just bullying.
it's not always the same person, but it's every single response to every tweet. Like he could be tweeting about the massacres, gun violence, or whatever, and then there's always some asshole that don't worry about that. Finish the book, and it hurts me a little bit. You know, this is a human. This is a whole human. He has a whole life. You know, this is his job. This is a bit of it. Like we need to like not be assholes to
Yeah.
him
It's
a little
basically
bit, like a little
like
bit. That's how I feel.
it is as disgusting as paparazzi.
I mean, it's pretty.
You're just predatory at that point.
I
You
mean,
know.
don't get me wrong. I want Doors of Stone.
Yeah. We
I'm
all do, but
I'm waiting for it to happen. But I also am not like gonna harass him on social media
right.
because at some point you gotta,
Well, I mean, I
you
think
know,
Game of Thrones should have taught us all a very important lesson about
right.
rushing to the finish line. You don't want that to happen. What I do have a problem with,
Okay.
a significant problem with,
Yeah.
are writers who start a series and then go on to other projects like the first didn't even matter.
Are we talking
Like
Jim
they're
Butcher
just
now? We're mad
I'm
at Jim Butcher now.
100% talking about Jim Butcher
Okay.
right now.
All
Jim
right.
Butcher, I feel like probably one of the finest fantasy books that I have read in a long time, other than King Killer Chronicles,
Right.
but I feel like this could be right up there with it, was The Aeronauts Windlass. That was smart, it was sharp, it was funny, it was world building, it had camaraderie, it had a charmingly sarcastic talking cat.
Oh, I love a cat.
Right? I mean, it was so great.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote one, and it has been like 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and he just keeps focusing on this misogynistic.
So, I mean, I do like Dresden. The first like four books you hate him, but you get. But I like
I
Dresden.
can't even see how it's the same writer, to be honest.
All right. I mean, I get it though. Like, I get that because like I feel that way like with Leap or Duga, right? Because like there's a part of me that's like all about Six of Crows and what she's doing with that. But then I'm like, where's my sequel to Ninth House? You've left me in a fucking place. It's been several years now. I'd like to get out of this place. I like to know what happens. Where's my sequel to the Ninth House? That's what I want. You know, I get it because it's multiple series, and I'm like you. I'm happy with the other series, and I'm happy with all the other things that are happening. But I just, in my heart of hearts,
Do you
I
have
need
do you have a fantasy where, and I don't mean what
Bow
you're
chicka bar.
what do you have like this fantasy where like you move into the writer's house,
Uh huh.
right?
No.
Um,
Immediately, I can say no. I don't have this fantasy.
well, there was that Stephen King movie where it was the writer who like secluded himself into this beautiful cabin in the woods. I can't remember what it was. I
Is this the
just
one with Johnny Depp?
yes, and I
Was
just
that Stephen King?
yeah, that was a Stephen King. With something window, secret window, or
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
not rear window. That was
No, it wasn't
Hitchcock,
Rear
but
Window, but like he was like,
something window. And I just the big thing that I mean that cabin was fucking amazing. I want to live in that cabin so bad. I wish. I mean, if it was a real place,
yeah.
if somebody out there has a lot of money wants to buy it for me, I'd
Ooh.
write them a haiku.
Just one haiku.
Just that's all I got in me.
Just the one haiku.
That's all I got in me.
All
But in
right.
any case, I do love the idea of Pat, as I call him.
Patrick Rothfuss. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like Pat, he's struggling, and it's I'll just move in,
Mm-hmm.
right? I make him breakfast.
Yeah.
I make offhand jokes to sort of take the pressure because he's probably it's like a boiler
Right.
boiling pot,
Are you
you know.
gonna make a book out of his skin? Is
No,
that a thing that's gonna
I'm
happen?
not
Cause
gonna hobble him or
okay.
anything
All
like
right.
that.
I'm just checking in. I'm
But
just
no,
checking in.
I'm just gonna make him like some pot pies
Okay.
and encourage him to be free with
Okay.
release the burdens and just take joy in his writing again and play some dominoes.
Yeah.
Mix the bones, as we
Sure.
say.
Sure.
And somehow that would sort of the valve
Yeah.
would be released, or
Right. The pressure valve.
yeah, and it would just come flowing out of him,
That would be great. That would be
and
great.
maybe
Uh-huh.
I'd get an acknowledgement.
I feel like you just want to be someone's muse, and that's
Well, I
cool.
mean, but it's not sexual or anything.
I didn't say that.
I think most muses are sexual, though, right?
No.
Like Salvador Dali and who's that chick that was in all the Rolling Stones and the Beatles all like Patty somebody, and she was like on a lot of album art.
I don't know.
Okay, sorry, I got off track.
Okay.
But anyways, I tend to think of muses as sexual,
All right.
but
Well, I
this isn't
mean,
sex. This is just pure creative
it's
empowerment.
more of like I'm thinking of, like in Sherlock Holmes, how there's that lady that takes care of the house and makes tea and shit.
Yeah, they're
Like that
underrated.
that lady, that's what you want to be. Like
Yeah,
that sort
that's
of.
exactly.
All right.
Also, harkening back to our very first episode, Madame Roserta. And as
Right. From Dumbledore.
Dumbledore wandered in of a night, although that was very, very
That was pretty
sexual.
sexual, that whole conversation, as I recall, as I recall. All right, so back on track. The reasons why I think there are more series is because I think they sell better. If you look at some of the best-selling books of the last 20 years, a gross majority of them, and I mean that as a pun, um, are part of a series. So like J.K. Rowling, Dan Brown from like Da Vinci Code, E.L. James, Fifty Shades of Grey,
Mm-hmm.
those are all series, and those are
Mm-hmm.
all high top 10, top grossing series. Series are making money, and that's why it's happening. Also, I think it's better for marketing. I don't know if you've noticed this current trend is, but now there's been some changes in the way that books get made and the way that books get sold. And a lot of authors are choosing to publish themselves or go with small publishers. And one of the ways that they're able to peddle their books or get people interested in their books is that they give one away free and then sell the others.
Oh, so it's like a gateway drug?
So it's sort of like a gimmick. So like if but you can't do that with a standalone, but if you have a trilogy, hey, I'm gonna give you book one for free, then you get addicted to it. Then you want to buy book two and book three. So it's like a way to get their readers enticed by giving them the books for free. So that's a thing that's happening now, especially with your authors that aren't represented by one of the big three publishing companies that are using Amazon to sell their books or going to conventions to sell their books. That's because they have a series of books that they can sell as a package deal. So that's one of the reasons, right? It's easier to sell the books. And then also, I think, and for marketing, you can expand more in your world. So if you think about Brandon Sanderson, for example, his Cosmere, imagine trying to get all of that detailed information into one book. His books are already encyclopedia length long.
Mm-hmm.
We've got at this point probably like 16, 17 of these books which explain this world. So now like I can pretty much understand the world because I've been with him through all these journeys. And so the things I know about the Cosmere have been sort of trickled down to me, like fed to me in ways that I could digest as a reader. If you're wanting to create an elaborate world that you want your reader to completely be immersed in and understand, you can't possibly get all of that into one book and have them be able to understand it. You need multiple books. Like think about, for example, Robin Hobb's world. So when we get a taste of the mainland with the first three books. Then we get the realm of the endless, we get the oceans, we get the sea and the bit with the sea things. And then we get more about the people in this part of the world. So we get different parts of the world. If you think about it in Harry Potter, right? So in the first book, we learn about just the school. And then as time goes on, we learn about the Gringotts Banks and we learn about more about Diagon Alley and more about the whole wizarding world as a whole and, how they get in and out of the wizarding counts or whatever, right? So with each book, we get more and more pieces of the world that we wouldn't have been able to get in one book. So I think that's a cool thing about series.
But what is it that makes writers want to sort of stay in one vibe instead of, okay, I went here, now I want to go somewhere completely different? Because it does seem to be, it definitely started with fantasy, and now
Right.
it's sort of the default in fantasy is that there
Mm-hmm.
won't be a standalone book. There's going to be,
And a lot of times there's at least a trilogy, if not more.
right. What is it? Why? I mean, and can you think of a fantasy writer that doesn't do that? That just does, boop, here you go.
I mean,
Now the next
Neil
one's going to be
Gaiman has
right.
a couple of just one-off books.
And you never know what you're going to get with him. Sometimes it's kind of spooky, creepy, scary shit, and some of it's kind of charming and whimsical and
Right.
little fun and charming and not scary at all.
Yeah, and I think that there are like some of the stuff he's worked with other writers on, you get more detailed information, different worlds. But you're right, like a lot of it, fantasy is world building, so it takes time, a lot of details, a lot of information to get that world, to understand it, to really get your fingers pruny in it. Whereas, like,
That's a great imagery right there.
if I'm reading about a story that takes place in Manhattan. I've read 150 stories that take place in Manhattan. I've read so many stories that take place in Manhattan that I don't really need you to tell me very much about Manhattan. I'm there immediately. Even if I've never even visited Manhattan, like I know that locale. If it's the Manhattan underworld, then maybe I need more detail. And the other part of it is I get attached to a character and I want to continue on with them. I want to know what happens to them. I want to know, do they ever find love? Do they ever, get a case they can't solve? Do they ever have a kid? What is it happens to that character? I care about that character now. I want to know about it. So even those series where it's like one and done, those are my favorite. I love it when they close it and then open it again and close it and then open it again. That's what I like because I don't want to be left in a place where I'm like, what happens? And now I gotta spend $20 to find out. Or I gotta wait 6 months to find out. Or I gotta wait fucking 12 years to find out. Like, I wanna know immediately what happens. Don't leave my characters in danger. Why would you leave me in a place where the characters I care about are in danger? Why, authors? Stop doing that. Stop leaving the characters in danger.
Yeah, we will read the book.
If we care about the character, if you're a good enough writer to get me attached to the
Yes.
character,
You
you
don't
don't
need
have to
to
leave them in danger.
Yeah, it's cheap. It's a cheap ploy.
I hate it. I
And
hate
frankly,
it.
you should be better than that.
That's what I think. All right, let's do shot 2.
Okay.
So shot 2 is book 2. It's going to be rum, Luxardo, lime juice, and agave syrup with bitters.
How do you say syrup? That's weird.
What do you say, syrup?
Syrup.
You do not say syrup. You do not. That is a lie. I have heard you say syrup. You never said syrup. No one says that.
Do you know what I grew up saying instead of siren?
Like a siren song, like siren.
Like, oh, the ambulance is going by and I hear that siren.
Yeah.
We said siren.
Oh.
Do you hear them sirens?
Seriously?
Yeah, and we'd all go out on the porch to watch it go by. It was a lot of excitement in LaGrange, Georgia, back in the day with my nanny.
Siren?
Siren. Is there anything Arizonians say that's different from?
No, Arizonans use the newscaster English. I'm trying to think if there is anything that we say that's different than other places.
It's a full shot, so.
Ooh, it is a full shot. She's filled it all the way up to the very, very brim. I'm going to shoot it right now.
What is that old 80? Oh, let's go.
Oh, damn. That's good.
Fill it to the brim with rim.
With rum.
No, it was fill it to the rim with brim. You know, the old coffee?
Oh,
coffee.
That was good. Like the lime just cuts it just right.
Thank you.
You made that nice. Oh, ooh, too much. Are you going to have enough for you to have a second shot?
Yeah, we should stack our shot glasses up like you do like at a bar.
Yeah, like as the shot glass comes. You want some of mine?
No, I'm good.
All right, cheers.
Cheers. This is probably going to require editing. Nobody wants to just wait in anticipation while we do shots.
I feel like they do. I think they're excited about us doing shots.
They're like, "Ooh, take your shirt off!"
Woo! Yeah. That was really loud. I apologize. All right, so
whose idea was it to do a series of shots?
It was mine because it's a series. It's a series, so a series of shots. All right. So that leads us to where we talk about the problem with series, which we've already kind of talked about.
Yeah, we've been all over the place. We apologize.
My biggest problem,
don't deserve this.
There's a couple that we haven't talked about though. So obviously the biggest problem with series is that they leave you in a fucking place. And I, April, today purchased a website called leftyouinaplace.com.
You did?
Where I'm going to fucking track this shit because I am so mad about being left in a place. I recently, you know that book that I love, The Lightning Struck Heart?
Dragonborn?
Yeah.
Michael Kramer?
Yeah. So, no. Michael, no. So there are two.
I try so hard.
That's not his name. So there are several books. There's a series of books. This is not just one book, Lightning Struck Heart. Although The Lightning Struck Heart in itself is a very good book that closes the loop. That closes the loop. There's no need to read further if you don't want to.
Say you, say me.
Say for always.
That's the way it should be.
So, anyway, so I read the second book in the series, which was fantastic. And then it left me in a motherfucking place.
Wow.
Left me.
Oh.
Like fucking characters in peril left me in a motherfucking place.
Listeners?
And I cannot tell you how pissed off I am about that. Because although the next book in the series is ready, I have commitments. I can't just read whatever I want whenever I want to.
I thought we had kind of a pact that you don't start a series unless it's finished. I mean, so you did that to yourself.
There are like there's the next book, and then there's the next book after that, and then there's the next book after. There's several books. I'm complaining because it left the characters in peril.
But there is
It doesn't matter. I have to buy the next book. I gotta pay $20 more, right, to buy for this next fucking book. Plus, I have other books I have to read before I can get to that one.
No, you're right.
So, like, I'm now in this place where I'm like, these characters that I care about are in fucking peril. Thank you, TJ goddamn Clune. They're in peril, and I don't know what happens to them.
You're too good for that.
I don't know what happens to them, and I have to read the next book, and then probably the next book to find out, because the book was called Destiny of Dragons. I expected the Destiny of Dragons to be fucking fulfilled.
You know what I think this is?
Don't leave me in the middle of the I only met one of the goddamn dragons. I'm out. I don't know. It makes me very angry. Very angry.
You know how they say when a series for a television show has been on for too long and they say they're jumping the shark.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be like Who Shot JR for writing. It's when you leave someone in a place and you don't have to trust your readership that we will be there for you
I would have continued
regardless.
on.
This
Yeah.
cheap like sort of emotional manipulation is
Right?
it's beneath you, frankly,
Quite
TJ.
really. I mean, how many books of TJ Klintz have I read? Many.
Yeah, I think in fact I used to date somebody who would judge Chinese restaurants by their movie vibe pan. I'm going to start judging writers by how they leave their books.
Whether they leave me in a place or not.
Yeah, if they leave you in a place, they're not confident.
I'm telling you
If
right
they
now.
wrap it up nicely for you, they respect you as a listener and reader, and they believe that you have the intelligence and fortitude to come back, and that you're not just some flash in the pan.
Leftyouinaplace.com. I'm gonna start logging this bullshit. So I think we've pretty much beaten this dead horse.
Okay,
I think it's
I
pretty.
would never, for the record, beat a dead horse.
I would either, but
I'd bury the horse.
I would not bury the horse because that seems like a lot of work. But I bet you that there's a service that manages that shift for you that you could pay them.
No, but if there wasn't a service, I would do the work because I think horses are one of those animals that have been just completely, we've subsumed them. Now their life is just about us and what they can do for us.
There's wild
So
horses,
very few though.
There's
Very
still
few.
some in Arizona. I've seen them.
Wild horses.
Okay. So let's talk about the other thing that I
But I do
think
love that song.
that there is a problem with series. They may never be finished. So we've talked a little bit of Patrick Rothfuss not finishing his book, but there's been authors who died, Robert Jordan, without finishing their series. And in some cases, yeah, another author picked up the mantle and took care of it for us. But that's not always going to be the case. There's always a possibility that a series is never going to be finished because the author's moved on, Eddie Amer, or the author has just decided that, or they've passed away, or something else has happened, or who knows, the publisher drops it and decides that they don't want to continue to whatever the series. There's any number of reasons. So that's a problem. That may never be, you never know what could happen. So the other thing is that there is a lot of time between books. And I can lose interest in the series. So I may be like super interested in a series of.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You got to be careful, Michelle, because this is why they leave you in a place. They want to make sure you come back. And you just admitted that.
I will lose interest in a series. If a series gets written and it's 10 years before the next one comes out, I could lose interest. It's possible. 10 years is a long time. Now, a year, probably not. 6 months, maybe not. But 10 years, it's possible. You could lose me as a reader.
I will never lose interest. I may forget.
Yeah, but that's a problem. Also, it can lose its relevance. The world moves on. Readers age. Trends happen. So like you writing a children's book or a children's series, and then you wait too long to write the next book in the series, and those kids age out, you've lost those readers because they're no longer in your age demographic. Time moves on. Relevance happens. No. That's a problem with series. That happens.
I think you're underestimating the power of nostalgia.
I'm not necessarily.
Are you not a nostalgic person?
I am a nostalgic person, but let's talk about how things don't age well.
I'm just thinking about books that I read as a kid that were even standalone books. And if I read that there was a sequel to one of them, I would read it in a heartbeat. And I'm 40 years old.
I mean, I'm just thinking like I loved Bunnicula. I loved The Vampire Stalks at Midnight. But if there was a new Bunnicula book, I'm not sure that I would pick it up now. Like you'd be like, it doesn't age well because of the time. Because things change, because people move on.
But the writers could change too.
Yeah, but will they lose the readers, is what I'm saying.
No, but they could correct their past mistakes.
Possibly. Or they could lose the readers. I'm just saying that's a lot.
I think you're threatening writers.
I'm just saying these are the problems.
She has a new website, y'all.
This is the problem with series, is what I'm saying. I'm listing the various problems with series for readers and for writers the same. These are the problems. The last thing I want to say is that they're asking a lot from me. Right? So like if a standalone novel, you're asking for $20, probably $12, $17, whatever, from me for a story. But for a series that's 9 books long, you're asking for like $120 from me. Plus you're asking me to give up a lot of time. It took me a year to get through the time. A year. That's a lot of my time as a reader to invest in the series. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't worth it. It was 100% fucking worth it. You're asking a lot more of the reader. I am more likely to read a standalone book.
Wow. I'm just really amazed at this tack that you're taking.
I'm not. I'm just telling you the truth.
What I'm thinking
This is me talking the truth.
I feel like they gave you a year's worth of entertainment.
Absolutely they did.
It was a gift.
But
and
I
you should
had
just say thank you.
It wasn't a gift. I paid for that shit. Because I pay for every fucking thing, April, that I read. But what I'm saying is, yeah, you heard me.
Don't disparage libraries.
I'm not disparaging libraries. I'm disparaging stealing. What I'm saying is,
I get my books from the library these days.
What I'm saying is that like you're expecting a lot from me, not only from a financial aspect, pay for them with your time in reading them.
Yeah, but would you rather spend that money on shoes?
I'm not saying that it's not worth it, April. I'm just saying that you're asking your readers to contribute more for what they get. Is all I'm saying. That's a downside of a series. Like, don't act like that's not a downside of the series. It's a downside of the series.
I mean, I don't.
It's fine. Do you have any other thing with problems with series that you want to add? Since you apparently don't agree with any of my problems.
Well, I mean, I'd say they're risks. I wouldn't say they're problems.
What would you say? Are there any additional risks that I've failed to mention?
Let me think. I would say I really haven't thought about it because I feel like if there's one thing you're going to do as a writer is roll the dice. I mean, I respect that and appreciate that, and I will take the risk. But I mean, make it good. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Be a good writer. Also, have a good vocabulary because there are a lot of writers that use the same phrases and words over and over and over again. And I have a bigger problem with that.
I noticed that too. You know what my least favorite thing that people do, or writers do? It's too something. Too hot cup of coffee. Too yellow raincoat. I hate this fucking use of the word too. It irritates me every time I hear it or see it. Especially too hot cup of coffee or too hot cup of tea. I hate it. It makes me mad every time. I'm like, fucking wait for it to chill, please. All right.
Yeah, we can move on.
All right, let's do shot 3 then. So shot 3
really? Okay.
is peach schnapps, blue Caracawa, and rum. This is going to be this, and this is
is that how you say it?
What?
Caracawa?
How do you say it?
Caraco? I have no idea how to
Whatever
say it.
the fuck it is. It's the blue liqueur. You use the really strong rum, right? In this one?
Yes.
This is going to teeter us over the end, not only because of the amount of sugar in it, but the amount of booze.
This is a serious problem with shots.
The serious problem with a series of shots.
And I'll not rest. My head will not lay upon a pillow until you join me in a rousing chorus of "To the sea!
To the sea!" This is peach schnapps, blue Caracawa, and rum. Cheers. That was not as good as I wanted it to be.
That was very strong.
The least tasty of the 3. All right. So, for the last section, I want to talk about which do you prefer
okay.
and why. What do you prefer, a standalone book or do you prefer a series?
Oh man, that's so hard to say. It depends. I mean, it depends. I would say, I have to say, if we're talking about speculative fiction, I prefer a well-managed, carefully planned series. Yeah. But if we're talking about non-speculative fiction, we're talking about, I don't want to, this sound, I'm drunk, I'm not going to phrase it right. True writing.
Oh shit, true writing.
When we're talking about literature.
Fiction.
Then it needs to be a standalone book. I need...
Like The Man Called Ove, right? You like that book?
Yeah, it was good. But I'm thinking...
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking...
Like, what's a literature book? True writing.
No, see, now it sounds so...
Snobby?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you are.
Anything by Colm Toibin. Of course, Amor Towles. 100%.
Who?
The Russian gentleman. Gentleman from Russia. Amor Towles is probably one of the finest writers writing today.
What has he written? Or she written? They written?
He has written Rules of Civility, and he wrote Gentleman from Moscow and Lincoln Highway. And that was probably my least favorite of the 3. Also, Patrick DeWitt, French Exit.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
Anyways, I think there is something to be said about, like I said, like being able to rein in your impulses and just really have a clarified point of view and a
Mm-hmm.
story that you're going to put forth, and then not being able to contain all of these other ideas and directions that you want to go so that your next book is totally different. I do appreciate that. I appreciate world building. Definitely, I
Mm-hmm.
do. But I think it's sort of the difference between hopscotch
Mm-hmm.
and leaping across a creek just by the stones that are scattered. You're nodding, but I'm not even sure what I meant by that. You push yourself more as a writer to do standalone books because the next book you're starting from scratch.
Right.
You're having to create something entirely new and different versus resting on your laurels. I know it sounds terrible, with some exceptions.
Right.
Obviously, there's some
Sure.
great fantasy writers that have truly built incredible. Robin Hobbs, Tolkien, Robert Jordan, Patrick Rothfuss, 100%. Although a lot of it is derivative. Other than Brandon Sanderson, he has completely created, and I would say Lee Bardugo to an extent, but a lot of even Patrick Rothfuss, and you know I love me some Pat.
I
I
know.
mean, it is a little derivative,
Right.
and it's hard to get away from that. Whereas with a standalone, well, I guess the difference is really that with non-speculative fiction, there's no pressure to be creating something entirely a whole new world because
Right.
everything exists in reality.
It's already
So
been created for you.
yeah, but again, that takes a skill set to be able to create something so rich and powerful and
Mm-hmm.
true just using these ingredients that everybody's already familiar with.
Sure.
That's a beautiful thing.
Sure. I think for me,
I am really drunk.
why do I have like a full shot and yours is like a quarter? What is that? This is this is a really strong
We are
shot.
singing a sea shanty before the night's end.
Fuck yeah. I think let's cheers. So I like a series because I become attached to characters
Mm.
and I don't want to let them go. I don't want to say goodbye to them at the end of the story. I want to continue to understand more about their lives. I want to be part of what they're doing and I want to continue down that path with them. That's why I like a series. But
But you know what
I
you're doing.
I want a
You know
series.
what you're doing.
What?
You're leaving out all the new characters that you could meet
So here's the thing
just
though.
to go back to the place you've been
I
before.
feel like you telling me this is really ironic because in our personal lives, I am constantly meeting new people and creating new events and inviting people into my life. And you're like, no, no, I just want my same old, same old, same old. So it's weird that you would say that
Oh, that's interesting.
because in our personal lives, we're not the same.
We're
But I
opposites, yeah.
do read new stuff all the time. Like if you look at my Goodreads list, you'll see that I've got horror, I've got romance, I've got fantasy, I've got literature, I've got nonfiction, I've got everything.
Name me one what we're calling literature book that you want to read.
Like if you we talk about the book that I was talking about before the podcast, the A Day Like This. That's literature, right? So it feels like fantasy when I was telling you about it, but really what the heart of that book was about a woman who woke up one day and realized that her child didn't exist anymore. That was the heart of it, right? So she got into a car accident. She woke up from the car accident, and now all of a sudden, her daughter didn't exist anymore.
Why would you want to read that?
Honestly, I read it because I have a friend named Kelly McNeil, and the author's name was Kelly McNeil, and I thought, hey, Kelly McNeil, let's do it. And it was on sale. That's
Yeah.
why I read it. Okay, so I like a series more than I like a standalone, but I do occasionally read standalones. In fact, I occasionally read a little bit of everything just to keep myself limber. I gotta stay limber.
I feel
But
like
I
you went a little like coffee.
coffee talk, I'll give
Yeah.
you a topic. It's not a chick or a peas, it's gorse. No, I like series though because I want to feel immersed in that world and also because I feel like at home there.
Maybe it's because you're looking for a deeper connection and a sense of familial connection
I do get a
that you
connection from those books. Like when I when I read a book series with a character I've already become accustomed to. If I pick up a Lady Sherlock Holmes book, I know her. I know how she's going to react. I know what's going to happen to her. I know what I want for her. And every situation that gets thrown at her, I'm either surprised by how she reacts or not surprised, but I'm rooting for her the entire way. Like, I like that. I like the idea that this is a character that I care about. Like, when I think about books, even characters I don't like Jason Pinter's books, I don't like her. I think she's a bitch. But there's a part of me that wants to see her grow and get better and become less of a bitch because I know in her heart that she's not a bitch. She just doesn't handle shit well. And the way that she handles shit is bad, but it's not because she doesn't care. It's not because she's a bad human. It's just because she makes bad choices. And I want her to make good choices. And I want her to see why the bad choices she's making aren't great. And then over time, I'm going to see her get better. And that's what's great about Dresden. Is that in the beginning you hate him because he does stupid shit and he's kind of misogynist and a kind of an asshole, but every single book he gets a little better.
I feel like your Southern came out just
Do
then.
you know what I'm saying? I'm not Southern.
But I know, but you've been here for a while, and I think it just came out because you said hate.
Hate. Every single book he gets a little bit better.
Yeah.
As he gets better, you sort of root for him. You're like, okay, I can see where this character is coming around. That maybe eventually he's gonna be a decent guy. Kind of root for him,
Do you
even though he does shit you don't like.
do you think there is a general shelf life for a character? 20 books. 20 books, and like you should probably be wrapping it up.
Like there's a point sometimes where I get oversaturated and I'll leave it for a while. For example, like the Iron Druid Chronicles,
Oh yeah.
right?
I
So
mean, who hasn't been oversaturated by the druids?
I will read two or three books and then I'll get, or even Dresden, I get oversaturated. Or what's the one with the chick that's a coyote?
I have no idea.
God, what is her name?
Do you read a book in which a girl is also a coyote?
Yes,
A coyote?
a coyote. And it's great. It's great. There's so many of them. There's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Patricia Briggs, I think, is the writer. Do you know Patricia Briggs?
Not even a little. Not even to say hi.
Um, Mercy Thompson series. I get a little oversaturated with Mercy because Mercy annoys me. And so I have to like leave it alone. Just leave it alone for, a couple of years, months sometimes. And then there comes a lull in my reading where I don't have another book chosen. And inevitably, I will pick up a Mercy Thompson book where I left off because I know Mercy and I know what she's going to give me.
So it's like your old comfy PJs.
And there's a comfort in that. There's a comfort in that Mercy is going to,
You're not gonna
she's
have to think too
she's
hard.
gonna have a fight with her boyfriend or husband or whatever that's the alpha wolf. Or sorry if it's a spoiler, guys. And then there's gonna be a thing, and then there's gonna be like fairies and vampires involved, and there's gonna be a whole thing, and it's gonna be stressful and stressful and stressful, and at the end it's gonna be fine.
Nothing about that seems appealing to me at all.
I feel like I'm doing Miss Mercy Thompson a disservice in this drunken rant about
I have
her.
given many writers a disservice
But
in this
what I'm
podcast.
saying is, so like the Iron Druid Chronicles or the Mercy Thompson series, these are long series that have several books, probably 8 or 9 or whatever, and they're one-offs, they're one and dones, like Dresden. So like at the end of the series, the characters are no longer in danger, they've moved on, and
They
everything is fine.
solved.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. And then the next book, oh, new dangers have arisen. And sometimes they're left over from previous books. Sometimes they're repeated characters that we haven't seen in a while come back. Sometimes it's the same characters as before. But you're like, okay, this is a world that I know. This is a new episode of Mercy Thompson.
I
And is
do.
she going to get that VW bug up and running? I don't know. Maybe she's going to get up and running. Probably. She's a really great mechanic, that Mercy Thompson. But what I'm saying is, you sort of like you fall back into it because it's there, it's comfortable, and sure it gets old after a minute and you walk away for a sec. But because they don't leave you in a place, you can walk away. And because they give you that freedom, that door is always open and you inevitably
Even if you miss a few books,
I
like
never
say
miss a
you read
book.
one, two, three, four, and then somebody you're at an Airbnb and there's suddenly book 8 and you didn't read 6 or 7.
I wouldn't do that with Mercy.
Okay,
Because
I was trying to go a place with you, and
I wouldn't do
I'm right
that. I
there.
wouldn't do it with Dresden or with Mercy because things happen in between the books that change their lives
So they're
in
not
between.
standalone,
But at the end of the book, you can leave it and walk away.
but they're not standalone.
They're not standalone. They're a series. But at the end of the book, you can leave it and walk away. Is what I'm saying.
So at the end of the book, you could break up and you each go your own separate ways amicably,
And it would be fine.
and it would be fine.
And
I you both wish each other well.
Right. It's that way with Dresden. It's that way with Mercy. And it's fine. And it's that way with Iron Druid Chronicles as well. But at some point, like I start to get homesick and I miss Arizona, and so I want to go back to the Iron Druid Chronicles. Or I just need something to fill the space, and I want a character that I can know and trust. I know what's gonna happen.
Do you think you'll ever move back to Arizona?
No.
But you love it so much.
I do love it. And I miss it. And when I visit there, I get, oh, Arizona. But no, I'm never going back there. All right. Let's do the bookend.
You have a bookend?
Sort of, yeah.
All right.
So, what I want to talk about for the bookend is, what do you think are the top 10 books of the last decade selling?
Oh, I don't know. There's been a pandemic.
Just guess. Guess me a couple. Now, of all, this is like gross, like cumulative. Like not the best-selling book of 2022, but like the best-selling book of the last 10 years. Cumulative.
Maybe, one book, not a series.
Sometimes a book in a series.
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
Yes, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo comes in at... Shit, where is that? That is one of the ones, I think. That was The Girl on the Train.
I was going to say Paula Hawkins. I was going to say that next.
The Girl on the Train come in at number
Top 5.
6. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, though, comes in... I don't know. But yeah, Paula Hawkins comes in at number 6.
How many years?
10.
Gone Girl?
Gone Girl? No, she's not. But
must be older than
that was a book that was the number 1 of the year that it was published. But just for that year, but not cumulative, right? Because, for example, the girl with the Paula Hawkins, The Girl on the Train, sold 8.2 million copies. Gone Girl actually is number 7 at 8.1 million copies. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo came in at number 9 at 7.9 million. So that's a series, right?
Gotta be some Game of Thrones stuff.
That's a series.
Gotta be some Game of Thrones.
In the 7th and the 9th for the there was no Game of Thrones.
Really? I thought the show might have.
No.
Man Called Eve.
No. No, that was the best-selling book of its year.
But not for 10
But not for 10 years.
Mm.
You want me to tell you? Yeah. It's going to break your heart.
Is it?
It's going to hurt your soul.
Is it?
Do you need another shot? Are you ready?
Is it Debbie McComber? Because that will break my heart.
It's worse.
Is it Jodi Picoult?
It's worse.
Is it Kristen Hanna?
It's E.L. James. 50 Shades of Grey. 15.2 million copies. In second place, it's 50 Shades Darker with 10.4 million copies. What? In third place, it's 50 Shades Freed with 9.3 million copies. Doing? What I'm saying to you is that the first 3 slots are filled up with one fucking series. Number 4, Suzanne Collins, The Hunger Games, 8.7 million. Number 5, The Help.
Oh, I hate that book.
8.7 million. Number 6, The Girl on the Train. Number 7, Gone Girl. Number 8, John Green, The Fault in Our Stars. Number 9,
John Green's all right.
The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And number 10, Veronica Roth, Divergent, another series. I kind of like that series. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying that
it's YA.
So what do you think of the top 15 books of all time?
Oh, of all time?
I mean, obviously the Bible's number 1. We'll discard that. What's the next one?
Grapes of Wrath?
Nope.
Oh, gotta be Harry Potter.
Yep, Harry Potter is not the number 1 book of all time. It is the number... Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is number 5.
And The Little Prince.
Yes, number 4.
Okay. Great Gatsby?
Nope. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince is number 13.
Greatest books of all time.
No, not the greatest books of all time. The most books sold of all time. This is an important distinction because I don't want to put 50 Shades of Grey up there.
The Alchemist?
Yes. Number 15 is The Alchemist.
Love in the Time of Cholera?
Nope.
Moby? No, that's not.
No.
The Old Man and the Sea?
Nope.
On the Road?
No, not Jack Kerouac.
I'm just going to talk about books I like. Wait.
Okay, what books do you like?
My favorite books.
What
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Nope.
For reals? A Tree Grows in Brooklyn?
Nope.
Freckle Juice?
Nope.
I mean, just give me a hint on one.
Okay, Charles Dickens.
Oh, is that in the last 100 years?
It's number 2.
Oh, okay. All right, we're going to go. Okay. All right, now I'm ready.
All time.
Okay.
All time.
Tale of Two Cities.
Yes.
Anna Karenina.
No.
There's got to be some Russian writer in there somewhere.
No.
Tolstoy. There's got to be some.
There's no
War and Peace.
No.
For reals?
Not in the top 15.
Okay.
Although, think Miguel de Cervantes.
Well, I thought that was Love in the Time of Cholera. What?
Don Quixote.
Is that in the last 100 years?
That's number 1, 500 million copies sold.
That was in the last 100 years.
It's an all time. Books sold of
100
all
years
time.
Of solitude.
No.
Oh, no. Why do I keep thinking it's 100
so
years?
It's Don Quixote, Tale of Two Cities. And the number...
Of all time. Les Mis.
No.
Of all time.
Number 3 is a series.
Oh, then it's got to be Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Number 4, I think you already said Little Prince. You said Little Prince. Number 5 is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Number 6 is Agatha Christie.
Murder on the Orient Express. I can't say the one because
and then there
were none.
100 million copies sold. Number 7 is, I don't think you know this one, The Dream of Red Chamber.
Never heard of it.
Number 8 is The Hobbit.
Any Jane Austen?
Nope.
Oh, that's crazy.
So, like, it's weird that things that we don't think of that are heavily sold series are out there. Like, a lot of kids' book series.
Oh, here's something controversial.
Okay.
Yeah, like where you were going, a lot of these series are kids.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think us as adults and society now, we've infantilized ourselves and we just need very palatable, spoon-fed bites of literature?
I think
I
don't read the Bernstein Bears anymore. Or...
But
Choose Your Own Adventure.
But it is appealing to that basic sort of rudimentary.
I think it's nostalgia.
I don't know. I think there's something to be said. And if I were sober, I would say it so eloquently. Mic drop. And then we'd be like, eat the books, motherfucker, and close the episode. But we can't do that because someone insisted upon a series of shots.
Is there any more shots left?
Oh, yeah.
Do we want to do the last of the shots? Everybody. All right. So apparently we're going to drink some more tonight. But you do the same. And also, while you're at it, eat the books, motherfucker.
West away, the round sun is falling. Gray ship, do you hear them calling? My people's voice have gone before me. I'll leave the woods that bore me. To the sea, the white gulls are crying. The wind is blowing and the white foam flying. Our days are ending and our years are failing. I'll pass, waters slowly sailing. Long waves, o'er the lush are falling. Sweet voices in the lost are calling. To the sea, the white gulls are crying. The